Iska Varan viewers, welcome to today's episode of Load Shedding, a show that focuses on current affairs pertaining to Africa. Today we shall be focusing on the not so positive aspect. My name is Kees Kibinda. Look at me. Look at me. I'm the captain now. Who doesn't remember the Captain Phillips movie with Bahad Abdi and Tom Hanks in the head roles? Sadly though, kidnappings as a cause of piracy is not uncommon in today's day and age. In fact, it has increased over the past 10 years. In fact, the International Maritime Bureau's Piracy report of the year 2016 indicates that in that year, more maritime kidnappings have occurred than in the preceding 10 years. Which is rather strange because overall, the piracy is at its lowest point since 1998 globally. The International Maritime Bureau's Piracy Reporting Center is based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and relies solely on donations. In Africa, most of the attacks happened off the coast of West Africa. In the Gulf of Guinea, over 9 separate incidents, 34 people were captured. There was also an increase of incidents in terms of attacks off the coast of Nigeria, some even as close as 100 nautical miles to the coast. It was up from 14 in 2015 to 36 incidents in 2016. Now, of course, when most people think of piracy in Africa, they think of Somalia. But I can tell you that, okay, in 2011 there were about 160 attacks off the coast of Somalia. This has dropped to 2 attempts in 2016. So the intent or the capacity of piracy is still there, but it's no longer as big a threat as it was back in 2011. Mind you, more than half of the attacks still occur in Africa. If you compare it, for example, with a country that also had a lot of attacks in 2015, look at Indonesia, for example, they had 108 in 2015, which dropped to a mere 49 in 2016. So that dropped by more than half, whereas we're still struggling. Maritime Cruise Services, a South African company, deploys crew members on cargo ships in African waters. Its director, Deanne Collins, pledges that the African Union should do more towards combating piracy on the African coast. So what exactly is the African Union doing? You see, of the 54 countries, 38 have coastlines. So it is a problem that we should all be addressing, or at least those 38 countries should. The African Union itself has stated that they have lost more than hundreds of billions of US dollars over the past decades due to smuggling, piracy, and other illegal activities. Take, for example, the large-scale illegal fishing that goes on along the coasts. Not only does it affect the environment as it depletes the current stocks, it also drives piracy as it reduces the chances of legal economic activities along the coastlines. The AU estimates that just off the coast of West Africa, the illicit fishing activities causes losses over 170 billion CFA francs just in West Africa alone. Now, let's put it into monetary values we understand. That would be 285 million US dollars or 260 million euros. Now, here's the zinger. This is not over the span of, let's say, 10 years or whatever. No, this is yearly. Yearly! So let's put it into perspective. In its heyday, between 2005 and 2012, the Somali pirates made an estimate of around 413 million US dollars. This is peanuts compared to the 285 million US dollars that the West Africa can incur just on fishing activities alone. We really need to get our act together. Now, I was just using Somalia as reference point because of the amount of pirates that were operating from Somalia or in Somalia between the time frame of 2005 to 2012. Somalia itself, of course, is not in West Africa, but in East Africa. Speaking of East Africa, the piracy attacks only started dropping after the international naval community, as it were, stepped in and started patrolling the coastline. But what is Africa itself doing? That was the question I asked earlier, and that question is still unanswered. Well, in October 2016, last year, 18 heads of states of the African Union got together. And apparently this is already an historical amount. So that means that they're taking the threat of piracy seriously. And they signed a treaty, or an agreement I should say, where they've agreed upon patrolling crucial coastline areas of the African coastline. So this is a step. It's not really the ideal situation because apparently they can still withhold information that they deem should be held private, not to share with other African countries. But of course, we need to be as transparent as possible in combating the threat of piracy, as well as smuggling and other illegal activities on or along our coast. So we end on a somewhat positive note. I mean, the intent to combat piracy is there. We just need to amp it up a little and really get going. Wouldn't it be great to have that 285 million US dollars that West African countries are losing due to illicit fishing back into those countries and into the pockets of the commoners? And in fact be able to do that for the whole of Africa. I think things would look a lot different if we managed. That's it for today. This was the negative aspect of the current affairs in Africa, or pertaining to Africa. You can subscribe to me on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course follow me on Twitter. My name is Kees Kibinda. See you next time. Bye-bye.